The necessary and appropriate response that comes from Canada is not a constructive path to be on. If you're like racing to the basement, there's no real prize for being the first person to get to the basement. Like it doesn't feel like the path that we want to be on.
That we are already on their back saying we're gonna be watching like hawks as to what may happen to the auto sector because this is a core industry for the prosperity of this country.
Today, I am announcing that the Government of Canada, following a dollar-for-dollar approach, will be imposing, as of 12:01 a.m. tomorrow, March 13th, 2025, 25% reciprocal tariffs on an additional $29.8 billion
Make sure that we put maximum pressure to defend our jobs, defend our sovereignty, defend our way of living.
Together, we will do what we must do to protect Canada's economy. With these most recent tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, the U.S. administration is once again inserting disruption and disorder into an incredibly successful trading partnership and raising the costs of everyday goods for Canadians and American households alike. We will not stand idly by while our iconic steel and aluminum industries are being unfairly targeted. Today, I am announcing that the Government of Canada, following a dollar-for-dollar approach, will be imposing, as of 12:01 a.m. tomorrow, March 13th, 2025, 25% reciprocal tariffs on an additional $29.8 billion of imports from the United States. This includes steel products worth $12.6 billion and aluminum products worth $3 billion, as well as additional imported U.S. goods worth $14.2 billion for a total of $29.8 billion. The list of additional products affected by counter tariffs includes computers, sports equipment, and cast iron products as examples. These tariffs are in addition to Canada's 25% counter tariffs on $30 billion of imports from the United States in response to U.S. tariffs put in place on March 4th. In addition, we learned yesterday that the United States tariffs would also be imposed on steel and aluminum content in certain derivative products. The government is currently assessing this aspect and may impose, of course, further tariffs in response to this measure as well. Our government is also taking steps to mitigate the impact of these countermeasures on Canadian workers and businesses by considering requests for exceptional relief through the existing remissions process. We understand that these are challenging, uncertain times for Canadian businesses and Canadian workers. That's why we've deployed measures to support workers and businesses. Export Development Canada, the Business Development Bank of Canada, and Farm Credit Corporation are there to help business owners find new markets for their products and access financing to help with liquidity crunches. We will use every tool at our disposal to defend Canadian jobs and Canadian businesses and support workers through these challenging times.
Canada is holding strong and will continue to do so together. Well, make no mistake, though, this is going to be a day-to-day fight. This is now the second round of unjustified tariffs leveled against Canada and Canadian goods. The excuse for the first round was exaggerated claims about our border. We addressed all the concerns raised by the U.S., and in return, they agreed to temporarily abide by the free trade agreement President Trump signed himself with Canada. The latest excuse is national security, despite the fact that Canadian steel and aluminum add to America's security, not take away from it. We will not back down, and we will not give in to this coercion.
Premier Ford yesterday had said that this was an olive branch from Howard Lutnick, but at the same time, President Trump says he wants to finish the auto industry and also make Canada the 51st state. So how do you trust the U.S. administration going into tomorrow's meeting?
Well, so obviously, outrageous comments, and Melanie talked about it from Mr. Trump in that regard, aren't constructive to building an economy that is in the interest of both Canada and the United States, and obviously with our Mexican partners as well. So our focus is not on exaggerated rhetoric. Our focus is on doing the work that Canadian workers and businesses expect their governments to do together. Premier Ford has been an important leader as not only the chair of the Council of the Federation, but as the premier of our biggest province in defending the Canadian economy and the economy of his province. I think it would be irresponsible not to take an opportunity to talk to Howard Lutnick about what we think is important to build a strong North American economy, and why we think these continued tariff measures and the necessary and appropriate response that comes from Canada is not a constructive path to be on. If you're like racing to the basement, there's no real prize for being the first person to get to the basement. Like it doesn't feel like the path that we want to be on.
To make sure that we put maximum pressure to defend our jobs, defend our sovereignty, defend our way of living.
That's going to affect hundreds of thousands of people in this country. Trust me, those who are watching are listening to that. Those who are watching, we're going to fight for the auto sector every single day. I spoke to them and I say, Canadians have been there for you. Canadians have been there for the auto sector for decades since we had the Auto Pact. And these companies, most of them, have long-standing commitments to this country. We're going to make sure that they abide by the terms of every single agreements we have with them to make sure we protect the jobs. We had discussion with the union leaders yesterday and with the representatives from the company, and they truly understand that the reasons they came to Canada is because we have the best worker, it's because Canadians have been there for them, and we have integrated supply chain. That we are already on their back saying we're going to be watching like hawks as to what may happen to the auto sector, because this is a core industry for the prosperity of this country.
Should we be reading anything, especially trying to build better relations with Europe and more new alliances there? Should we read anything into the French submarine that surfaced near Halifax yesterday?
We are having lots of conversations with Europeans right now. I'll be meeting with the foreign ministers from, of course, Germany, France, Italy, the foreign minister of the EU, as well as the British one. And I know that the Prime Minister designate is going to reach out to many of our European friends. But let's all remember that not only Prime Minister Trudeau at the time, myself also, we went to Europe to coordinate this very response on aluminum and steel tariffs with the EU. And so we're seeing the reaction of the EU today on steel and aluminum. When it comes to defense, to your very question, you know, we're NATO allies. We work together. We cooperate on military exercises. And we want to do more with Europe. And we want to do more with defense procurement also with Europe. And so these are all parts of the conversations we're having. As for your specific question, I think Bill Blair, who's a fantastic Minister of Defense, can also answer you.